G'day, g'day, and welcome to Victory. My name is Matt Fradd. Today I want to look at an article that came out of Fight the New Drug. It's entitled, Can Watching Porn Increase Sexual Satisfaction in Romantic Relationships? So we're going to take a look at some studies. I have a whole article in my book, The Porn Myth, on this, but I want to see what they have to say. Before we look at the article, I think one thing is worth saying up front. I think it's the wrong question. Can watching porn increase sexual satisfaction in romantic relationships? I think that's the wrong question because lots of things can increase sexual satisfaction and be a really bad idea, can ruin your life. If my two plans that I'm considering for tonight are spending time with my children, reading with them by the fire and putting them to bed, or going to see a prostitute, okay, if you look at those two scenarios, could going to see a prostitute increase sexual satisfaction? Yeah, it could. Doesn't mean it's a good idea. It's a terrible idea. So even if it is the case that pornography increases sexual satisfaction in, say, marital relationships, it doesn't follow at all that it's a good idea. I mean, we could change the question again. Could swinging with another couple increase sexual satisfaction? Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. But however you answer the question, it has nothing to say on whether or not it'll destroy you and destroy your marriage. But let's take a look at this because some good research has been coming out and I want to take a look at it. Research suggests that there are a number of ways that porn can negatively impact romantic relationships, including sexual satisfaction. So right off the bat, Fight the New Drug do a great job at taking an objective, scientific approach to these questions. Full disclosure, I'm a Christian. I think that pornography is intrinsically evil and can never be good. But they're going to kind of write this from an objective perspective just by looking at the evidence. So I think this is worth considering. Let's have a look here. The reality is most young people are getting at least some of their education about sex from porn. And by the way, I've got the link to this article in the description below. If you want to see the footnotes to each of these, just go and check that article out. That can become incredibly problematic in sexual relationships, given that porn can warp expectations about sex, bodies, and relationships. The other thing I love about Fight the New Drug is that they footnote every claim that they're making. In my book, The Porn Myth, I've got about 30 pages in the bibliography, just laying out the different scientific sources. In fact, one survey found that 53% of boys and 39% of girls reported believing that pornography was a realistic depiction of sex, and 44% of boys who consumed porn reported that it gave them ideas about the type of sex they wanted to try. This is obvious, and this is a really great reason to get Covenant eyes on all of your devices. I mean, I'm of the opinion that you should sort of delay the internet and the social media world from your kids for as long as possible. There's no way my children are going to be on social media until they're 18. You have to make the choice that you think is right for you. But I think allowing them to use social media, allowing them to use a smartphone that's not locked down through Covenant eyes, is just a great way to be a neglectful parent. Yeah, that's my opinion. Tell me what you think in below if you think that's too harsh. But that is my opinion. I mean, for the last few years, I've traveled the country and I've spoken to, in person, I would say hundreds of thousands of teenagers, at high schools. I don't do it so much post-COVID lockdowns, but did before. And yeah, it's almost inevitable that these kids are seeing porn, unless parents are being super dutiful, not only in restricting access to smartphones that aren't locked down and social media, but I think are also kind of taking a proactive approach and talking about the negative effects of porn. All right, so this, as they say, is really problematic, the fact that we have so many young girls and so many young boys being exposed to porn, especially given the fact that porn is wildly unrealistic and often promotes toxic tropes including rape, incest, sexual violence, sexism, racism, etc. In porn, it's all about the viewer. In porn, finding a partner, quote unquote, is effortless. The performers are seemingly always ready, willing, and longing for your attention. This partner has nothing else to do with their time but wait for you. They're young, attractive, sexually adventurous, and anxious to please. This partner will never age, never get bored or annoyed, never have an off day or need a listening ear. And if this porn partner ever fails to keep you entertained, they can be exchanged with a single click. The problem is that internet pornography has a number of unique properties that make it very different from real-life relationships with real-life people. Features of porn such as limitless novelty, on-demand accessibility, and easy escalation to more extreme material can condition someone's expectations for sex to aspects of pornography consumption that do not readily translate to a real-life partner. As this happens, real-life sex may not register okay, it's fine, as meeting expectations for a regular porn consumer, and arousal and satisfaction can decline. And this is kind of what's interesting, that couples may turn to porn to quote unquote enhance the sexual pleasure of their sex life. But suppose, just for a moment, that sex is about intimacy. It's about being vulnerable before another person. It's about giving yourself to them. You know, on your wedding day or on my wedding day, I said, I want our love to be free, faithful, and fruitful, you know? And in pornography, is it free? Well, the person I'm viewing certainly has no specific say in the moment that I'm choosing to objectify him or her. Is it faithful? No, it's faithless. I click from one fantasy to the next whenever she or he ceases to please me, and it's certainly not fruitful. It's a sterile act. And merely bringing this into the bedroom and having your wife or your husband watch it with you, this is problematic on multiple levels, right? If sex is about intimacy, I've heard intimacy being described as intimacy. I think it's a beautiful way of thinking of it. Okay, if that's what it's primarily about, it's not about your personal sexual pleasure. Sexual pleasure is important, of course. But if primarily it's about intimacy, it's about giving of yourself, it's about the life that can result from this sexual act, then turning your gaze from your beloved onto a screen to watch these performers, these digital prostitutes, the idea that this is going to be beneficial to the intimacy of your marriage is an insane idea. The article continues, as we've discussed, research suggests that there are a number of ways that porn can negatively impact romantic relationships. As the evidence of porn's potential harms continues to pile up, many leading therapists and relationship experts have started to express concern about the impacts of pornography on relationships. In fact, world-renowned relationship experts Dr. John and Julie Gottman wrote an open letter through the Gottman Institute to express their concern. Here's some of what they had to say. Quote, research on the effects of pornography use, especially one person frequently viewing pornographic images online, shows that pornography can hurt a couple's relationship. And they say elsewhere, there are many other factors about porn use that can threaten a relationship's intimacy. First, intimacy for couples is a source of connection and communication between two people. But when one person becomes accustomed to masturbating to porn, they are actually turning away from intimate interaction. Second, when watching pornography, the user is in total control of the sexual experience, in contrast to normal sex in which people are sharing control with the partner. Worst still, many porn sites include violence towards women, the antithesis of intimate connection. Pornography can also lead to a decrease in relationship trust and a higher likelihood of affairs outside the relationship. And that makes sense, doesn't it? If I'm justifying this digital infidelity, it's not much of a leap to go to in-person infidelity should that be available to me. Let's see, pornography can also lead to a decreased relationship and trust, high likelihood of affairs outside of marriage. Many porn sites now offer an escalation of sexual activity beyond simply viewing porn that includes actually having sex with other individuals. In summary, we are led to unconditionally conclude that for many reasons, pornography poses a serious threat to couple intimacy and relationship harmony. This moment calls for public discussion. We want our readers around the world to understand what is at stake. The reason this is so important is that for so long, the porn industry has tried in vain to convince us that pornography is beneficial to couples who want to spice up their sex life. It turns out, if you look at the research, that the opposite is happening. Maybe I should have said this at the start of the video. The desire to have a beautiful sexual experience with one's spouse is and can be a beautiful thing. So if somebody just wants to be more intimate, have a more sexually arousing experience with one's spouse, this isn't necessarily bad. This can be a good thing. So the point of this article isn't to shame you if you've considered watching pornography with your spouse, or if you're not married, your partner, but it is just to show you that it will have the adverse effect of what you're going for. My friend Jason Everett once said, pornography is the perfect way to shoot your future marriage in the head, or we could say to shoot your current marriage in the head. So the research is clear. Porn is not a harmless pastime, especially when it's hurting a romantic partner. But the research is also clear that shame is not an effective way to motivate someone to change. And that's kind of why I said what I just said a moment ago. The only thing that can conquer a desire is a stronger desire. If I want to go surfing one morning, and of course I live in Ohio, so it's very unlikely that's going to happen, but back when I lived in San Diego, right, I'd set my alarm clock and I'd wake up, and if my desire to stay warm in bed was stronger than my desire to go surfing, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to stay in bed, right? The only thing that can conquer a desire is a stronger one. And so you think, okay, what could I desire more strongly than to watch pornography or to introduce this into my marriage? And while superficially we may think not much more, there isn't a greater desire, I really don't think we're that trashy as human beings. I mean, maybe you've sort of become this trashy through pornography, but I think if we're honest, we would say, no, my greater desire is to love and to cherish and to respect and to protect this person who I've promised to love and who I'm showing love, or ought to be showing love, through this sexual embrace. So shame is not enough. The only thing that can conquer a desire to look at porn is really love, which might sound generic and cliche, but I still think is the case. My desire to protect and to love this individual, to take care of them, to want their good, to even sacrifice myself on behalf of them, is a stronger desire. And if you want proof of this, just look at the movies that we so often love. What's the movie? Where you can tell me in the live chat because I'm forgetting, and I cannot believe I'm forgetting. Where the animals, or these alien monster creatures, hate noise, and when they hear it, they attack people. Come on, Matt Fradd, think of it. Anyway, that was a great example of personal sacrifice, where the father sacrificed himself for his family and where the wife sacrificed herself. Like when we see people sacrificing their good for the good of another in television or in movies or in books, we don't go, oh, that's kind of crappy. We are like, we swell with emotion and we want our love to be that noble. A Quiet Place. Luke, you are the best. Thank you very much. A Quiet Place. And many other movies like this as well. I mean, my classic one that I keep going back to is Braveheart, where a man sacrifices himself for the good of his people. And you could think of many more. This is the kind of lovers we want to be. So let's tap into that, because shame is not enough. Let's see here. According to one study of individuals trying to quit porn, researchers found that shame actually predicted increased pornography consumption, while guilt predicted sustainable change. Did I read that right? While guilt predicted... See, I think we should distinguish between shame and guilt, by the way. I mean, you can define words however you want to define them, right? But shame, we could think of being sorry for who I am. Whereas guilt is about being sorry for what I've done. So if you look at pornography and you feel a tremendous amount of guilt, what you don't need is therapy that would seek to justify your illicit behavior. What you need is a change of behavior so that guilt need not occur. All right, let's keep going here. If your partner is struggling with porn, you're not alone. I often give talks at high schools, universities, elsewhere, and people will come up to me and they share the pain of having a partner looking at porn. And it's not just men. I had a woman who wrote for the first book I ever put out called Delivered. It was she who introduced pornography into the marital act. And forgive me if this is too much information, but hey, this is a whole YouTube channel about pornography, so maybe you should expect it. She got to the point where she could no longer climax with her husband. Rather, she would have to leave him, view, porn performers on her computer or wherever, and come back to the marital bed to climax. That's just ugly. There's nothing beautiful about that, right? Pornography robs us of the sexual pleasure that is the result of the marital embrace, So, there's help though. Here's a good website, bloomforwomen.com. If you're a woman and your husband struggles with pornography, I'll often have women come up to me and say, what can I do about him? I think you should ask, what can I do about me? Because you've experienced trauma. And bloomforwomen.com, like a flower blooming, right? Bloomforwomen.com, in case my accent is hard to understand, will be a great resource to you. And I'd highly recommend that you check that out. All right, so I hope that's been a help. I would love to hear you below. Honestly, what do you think? Do you think that pornography can increase sexual pleasure within marriage? Is that even the right question? Does it increase? Does it promote intimacy? Why? Why not? Perhaps you yourself have had a personal experience that you want to share. Feel free to do that below. And let's just do our best to offer support and encouragement to those in the comment section below. Hey, one last thing before we go. If you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, would you please do that? I hope you agree that the internet needs more of this message and less scantily clad people doing illicit sexual things. And so by you subscribing and clicking that bell, you're promoting this YouTube channel, and the hope is it'll reach more and more people. God bless you. Keep it real. Chat with you next time. See ya.